Well, hey peeps. This is my second attempt. I ended up having to write an outline of what I wanted to talk because I ramble so much. And I am here to talk to you about not the comic or anything, and understand that this is not a common thing for me to do because I had often thought about becoming, a commenter on this kind of stuff, but I don't have time. I am stepping away from comic book making and music making to discuss this because it keeps coming up in my feed. Do you people not have anything better to be bitchy about? What I'm talking about is the "you act white" thing. It just keeps coming up. Gothics was a guest on a person I just recently discovered's show recently, even to discuss it. I'm going to find it now because I can't remember her name. I'll put it in my things. And it's like, and so I went on YouTube to find out if there was a source or something, and this has been going on for 7 years at least. To people going, "Well, you act white," and it's hard enough that I've had it my whole life of getting told how I'm white when I'm not. Newsflash, I'm not. Uh, so I thought, okay, I'm going to react to this because it keeps coming up, and I'm going to say some stuff that no one seems to be thinking about because either they're ignorant of the history or the social ramifications, or they're just petty and don't care. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and we're going to start. And we're going to start, but I'm coming at this from a place of experience, on top of the fact that bachelors in anthropology, and so hopefully I can put in some input on this problem, and I'm not going to say I'm going to solve it because there's going to be people out there who's going to say hateful, stupid things like that the world over. But hopefully I can add a new angle to this because, come on, 7 years and people are complaining about the same thing over and over again. And I understand that you have been attacked with this statement and you're in the middle of the forest and you're not able to look at the trees. So I'm going to hopefully point out some trees to you. And I don't know if it'll help you stand strong or not. It's just, this is my reaction. That's just the bottom line. This is my reaction. And we're going to do this with me doing a face massage. Because you see, since being forced to come to, since not being forced, but highly encouraged to come to Florida, there's no way to exercise anymore. I have no stairs to run up and down, and I have just been completely falling apart. So I'm like, well, while I do this, I'll do a face massage. Which, what a face massage does is it brings the blood to the surface of your skin, and as you can see, I'm really falling apart. And, I'm like, well, this is a good thing to do while I do it. So I'm going to get my hair up out of my way. And, I'm going to go ahead and go through the steps of the face massage before we begin. Just so you know, and while I do that, I can tell you about some of where I come from, because there's no way I can encapsulate my entire life in just a few minutes for you. But I'm also going to be telling you what I'm doing. So the first thing I'm doing is, a lot of people only prep their face by washing it, and not me, because I'm also putting elements into my face to try to help. And I can tell you that my face goes faster than most skin. So this is a rose water and aloe cheap little thing I found. I don't know if it really has, let me see, it's got water or glycerin, glycol, castor oil. That's supposed to be good for your skin. Fragrances, of course, because heaven forbid. Rose water. Roses are really good for your skin. I forget exactly how the elements help with anti-aging and stuff. I'll have to re-look it up. And aloe, which, as we all know, is famous for being good for the skin. And whenever this goes low, I end up making my own just straight out of aloe and roses if I can get a hold of them. Now I'm going to put some collagen on my face. Because, see, I'm doing a massage, and this means that stuff's going to be getting massaged in. And so, put this on my face. It's really ironic because when I'm done, I'm just going to go wash it all off. But some elements will have gotten in, I hope. There are dermatologists who say that your skin does not absorb elements. But you see these things, when you do all those lotions and stuff, and they'll show like a picture of the outer layer of your skin, and they're like, you only go in so far, and I'm like, as opposed to not at all, which kind of applies to the part of the complaint about the You Act White, actually. Lastly, well, actually, I've got 2 more steps, but this is the big one. This is vitamin E grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is really good for your skin because it has antioxidants, which are the yes, oxygen is slowly burning us alive. It is a very funny joke, but it's also true. And the antioxidants help with that because antioxidants. It also covers your skin. It moisturizes it. And the bottle here says it's got linoleic acid, which is supposed to help unclog pores. And since I've always had a problem with that, I'm like, I am down with this. So, and oil also acts as a good agent to help getting stuff into your skin. So I already put stuff on my skin to help my skin. So now I'm going to do the oil. But the oil is also to help with the massage. So I'm going to apply it to my face, and then I will begin telling you my story. So, look. My whole life I have known nothing but actual racism. Not this racism that people claim exists. Well, you said some fact, that means you're attacking so-and-so because you said a fact, which is the stupidest, most ignorant thing. I mean, that's just an argument people fall on when either they haven't been taught to think critically, they've been shielded their entire lives, and I've known a few people that were shielded, way shielded their entire lives, and they had the lack of ability to debate as a result because they were used to having the world handed to them. Oh Lord, I forgot where I was. But actual racism in my experience has been Native Americans, which in case you couldn't figure it out by yet. Oh, you couldn't, could you? The women were only good for sex. That's one I actually heard and was actually pushed at. Native Americans are stupid. You end up getting put into remedial classes because Native Americans are stupid. I remember when I had first started going to college, one of my books covered that particular phenomenon, which I thought was just me. I thought, because every time we would take that test at the end of the year, I thought that I couldn't never figure out why I would kept getting put into these remedial classes and then having to be moved up whenever a slot opened to where I belonged, because I knew I did well, because I knew all the answers, and I would always finish the test before anybody else. I learned that, especially in the 70s, it still was pervasive that Indians were considered stupid, but now that I'm even older and, I look back on this because I would take the test. I would do well on the test, I always thought. I would finish the test. We would get our scores back. You know how you get to see your scores after you finish? And I never had a failing grade. I always had top marks. I was always like acing them, basically. I cannot remember ever making a B on these year-end tests. And yet, when the next year rolled around, I was always in a remedial class. I had to take pre-algebra 5 times. I had to take speech 3, which worked out to my advantage, that one. One year they lost my speech grade, actually lost it so that I got placed in it again, even though I knew I had passed the class. And I didn't really have anyone backing me up. My family was incredibly dysfunctional, which the cult played on that. And so that, natives were stupid. So I always got stuck in stupid classes. Or was it? Because you see, when you dig deeper and you realize more, you realize, wait a minute. The classes only had so much room in them, and they were always full of everyone else. and everyone else had more money than me. And so then I would get stuck in the overrun, and then an opening would open up in the other classes, and then I would get moved. And sometimes I would just get moved because the teacher realized I was in the wrong class. In high school, I was stuck in remedial earth space science. I was bored out of my mind. Plus, I was getting picked on because it had stuck me with the people who picked on me the hardest. And it was the principal's wife who realized I was in the wrong class and wanted to know why. And I was like, I'm just always stuck in these remedial classes. It happens to me every year. And she had a fit and moved me into a higher class. And that was a white woman who did that, by the way. She wasn't black. She wasn't Asian. She wasn't any other color. She was a good person, and she did right by a student, regardless of her race. With that being said, I've also known actual racism. I've known what it's like to be excluded from driver's ed when I went up because my mother and her passive aggressive ways made me miss the first class, and I went to go see if I could get in late, and the guy said no, and then these two white girls asked if they could get in late, and he said yes. But in the town where I grew up, there was also a really huge financial divide. I'm guessing it's time for me to start the massage, so I'll start with my forehead. And that had a lot to do with it, but everyone knew who my father was. And even though my father was part of the start of the shipping industry in Florida, that didn't matter back then. So was it racism, or was it just flat bigotry because financial? I'm kind of actually leaning more towards financial. It isn't that I didn't hear all the time, well, Indians are stupid, and the other kids would laugh and go, Indians are extinct, and make fun of me. But they were making fun of me before they figured out that I wasn't white. So hatred is hatred, and hatred doesn't really give a crap about your skin color. All hatred really wants is to attack and hurt you, and your skin color becomes an excuse. But I have been actually attacked, you people. I've heard that one. You don't need, you don't deserve your children. I had, that's been a phenomenon that happened up until the 80s. If you're Native American, you have a child, you live in fear of your child getting taken from you. And they tried it with me. So that being said, this whole "you act white," and I'm listing a past where race played a large part in my life because everyone else made it play that way. I was proud of my heritage and would tell everyone I'm Indian, and then later on I realized, well, yeah, telling somebody, not telling someone doesn't change what I am. But that was as far as it went, as far as I was concerned, because for me it was just, it's my identity, and that was that, The other people who made it an issue, they're the ones that made it an issue. Which is why I find it really ironic nowadays. It's like this big fight. Everybody's like, oh, color, because we were told don't see color. Don't see color because that's racist. If you don't want to be racist, then you don't look at somebody's skin color first, because that's looking at their race first, which is racism, because you're using their race to judge them. And it doesn't matter if you are black, white, yellow, purple, orange. If you're doing that, you're doing a racist act. You look at you look at the strength of their character. You look at how they're acting. Actions first, right? And now all of a sudden it's, well, you need to see race first, because if you don't, you're racist. Which, no, I'm never going to subscribe to that. If I had looked at race first my whole life, I wouldn't have the friends that I have made. I wouldn't know the people I have made. I wouldn't have gone the places I have gone. It just, no. No. I'm not, going to let that hold me back. And we're going to discuss holding back in a minute. It's really ironic. It really is. Because in high school, in Mrs. Buck's English class, I love Mrs. Buck, we had to sit and discuss debate topics. We had to choose debate topics. To understand, though, I was the most made fun of person in the school. I was so made fun of and so picked on that not only was my self-esteem ended up in the toilet, and I've even had suicide attempts. Not necessarily just because of them, by the way. It's just life. Uh, but I didn't have a voice. I would say and do something I knew that they would have said, the kids would have said and done something in class, but because it was me, it would get discounted, and then they would act all high and mighty over something that they had themselves said. But we were asked to choose debate topics, and we're supposed to have partners and stuff, and I never had partners or anything. You know how that goes. And so we wrote down our topics on paper, and it was supposed to be anonymous because I guess because Miss Buck might have been trying to diffuse the situation. And I didn't know any topics really. I mean, I could have discussed what was going on in Iraq or whatever, you know. That I chose racism because to me the thing that had most affected my life was the hatred around me. But it was me. And you know they knew it was me that wrote it. And all these other kids, they were like, racism doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. And they threw the idea out. They threw it out because it was me, not because they knew it didn't exist anymore, because they didn't want to face their own fallacies. And I just find it really ironic because it's like, I'm like, oh, so how do you feel now? It's years later. It's like 30 something years later. How do you like me now? Because, profit. So it's really ironic that I'm sitting here discussing this topic now. So going to the topic, you probably have not understood a word I said or where I was coming from. Let's just say that shit life happens. I have, things. I have been to school. I have been around. I've met people. I observe things. Moving along. What does it mean to act white? Seriously, what does it mean to act white? I'm seeing these reactions from people, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 7 years ago. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing the blood up right here. And it's, this is an ongoing topic. Why? Because of all the people that will say to someone else, you act white. Why do you act white? Well, when I've had it thrown at me, I was told by a white guy, a liberal white guy, one of those that hates their own people, that I might as well be white because Native Americans had been so colonized that we no longer remembered our identities, and look at my skin color. It was probably the most racist thing I had ever been told in my entire life. I might as well be white. Now, my father once said I was white because he wanted to pick a fight. And when I told him, well, if I'm white, you understand your grandchildren are white too, he literally got out of the chair and beat the shit out of me. That had nothing to do with me being white. That had everything to do with him having a bad day. Which, now, before we go, yes, my parents were prone to abuse. Me and my father reconciled in the end, and we were on much better terms later. So, those were bad days, and they, and he worked to improve, just like I have worked my whole life to be a better person. So, before you go holding this against my father, understand that you've got to be some kind of shitbag, and you know who I'm talking to tell someone whose father has just died or is only been a year dead what a horrible person their father was. You have to be an evil, horrible person to bring that kind of drama into play when someone's grieving. Just like you have to be an evil person to tell someone that no one ever liked them when their mother is dying. Yes, bitch, you know who I'm talking to. So understand that these, I'm only bringing it up not for the sympathy, but because these are the events. And yeah, that is the most racist thing I have ever had thrown at me. Oh my God. Oh my God. Just, the stupidity of some people that have bought into this, what's going on. So what does it mean to act white? Is it language? Because I spent some time going on YouTube and looking at videos, and I found an old 2020 rundown on it where it was 2020 had done a piece on the matter, and they were interviewing some young college students, and these were all black students, and they were asked, well, what do they mean? And it was like, because I don't speak, I speak proper English. Well, not even proper English. I speak American proper English. They speak educated. And I have to question that. You're telling someone they act white because they are intelligent and they are nurturing that intelligence, and they are using the dominant language that is an important language for success in the world that we are in now. And you're telling them they act white. But we're going to start historically with this. The Pharaoh, who was not always white. Yes, Alexander the Great came in. He was Macedonian. I don't know why people say he was Greek. He was Macedonian. And he conquered Egypt, and he took Egypt, and then the pharaohs after him were the descendants of his generals' children, and they were Greek. Now, people go, but that's white. It's not black. I have a hard time looking at a Greek person and saying that's a white person just because they come from Europe or because they've got my skin color or whatever. They are Greek. The Greeks were tribes. They had different areas. We had the Athens and the famous Sparta, which Alexander the Great hated the Spartans for reasons, and but the later pharaohs were not black, but the early pharaohs were definitely Egyptians. So you're telling me that this pharaoh, who was the religious head of an entire country, and in the very beginning, parts of the country, because they slowly formed and melded. You're telling me this dude was not expected to be at least educated and versed in the ritual that he had to do every morning to bring up the sun? You're telling me that these people in Egypt that had to be read and write in hieroglyphs to paint the tombs, they weren't they weren't allowed to be educated in their situation. Moving forward, the Sumerians with the stone tablets. You're telling me that those people who did those stone tablets, they were not white. Were they acting white whenever they were recording everything onto the stone tablets? Moving further into the Middle East, even further into the Arabia and their extensive scientific and knowledge of the stars and everything, you telling me those not white people were acting white by recording all that knowledge? And even now further up to a little bit more closer to today, you're telling me that an astronomer in South Africa whose skin is definitely far darker than mine, you're telling me that he's acting white by being educated and being successful in his country? Or somebody in China, a genetic physicist in China, you can't tell me that you're telling me that Chinese person is acting white because they're successful in their field? And it just goes on and on and on. So, language, which plays into this kind of success to be educated. But in order to speak proper English, you tend to be a little educated because you can do things like read a book, or just the people around you speak it well. And so then you're fluent in the better American English, because we're going to try to stick to America. That's not acting white. Yes, I will allow that the colonists brought the language over, and in my people, notably, our children would be taken off the reservations and stolen and carried to Indian schools and beat for speaking their native language and forced to speak English. To get the Indian out of them was the actual recorded reason. The Indian problem, we were called. So, but some of our languages are dead. And particularly my tribe, the Brotherton, which I come from the Fires of Mohegan because I'm a direct descendant of Uncas and Samson Occam, the one of the founder, the father of our tribe. I am descended to him from his daughter Mary. We were formed of several tribes that had come together, and we chose English as our language. So you're telling me we're acting white because we got together and went off and made our own way and chose a common language that we could all speak? Yes, I do the Mohegan Language Project because I'm trying to bring it back, and I will spend all day long trying to find words and speak to myself so that I can speak it. But the fact is, I am educated, and I read a lot when I was a kid. I have written books. I write comic books, and that's not acting white. In my culture, in particular, storytellers are very prized people, and you have the traditional storyteller who has the stories passed down to them, and I know a few of those. And then you have people who are just storytellers, and so I happen to know that I come from very important stock here, and it's not because I'm acting white; it's because I'm acting Indian. And yeah, so language is out, and the same thing goes for just being educated, period, because that ties into it. Um, I noticed in the 2020 thing that I watched, and I was gonna like have it here to react to, but no, the students were saying things like that it was often that it was someone else who was jealous at their success and didn't want them studying, and the teacher they interviewed, I didn't get very far into it. She was talking about how difficult it was to see the blacks hold each other back, and that's just it. Someone who is going to call you acting white because you have a successful mindset and want to learn and understand more about the world. Maybe you're curious about Jupiter and you want to go see Jupiter someday. You know, it's ironic. It's I don't know if it's actually ironic, but it's sad that we get the first black astronaut, for a wild example, while you get kids getting told they're acting white for being intelligent and trying to rise up to get the knowledge it would take to become the first astronaut, the first Native American, this, the first, so my take on that is a lot of that isn't even that you're acting white. I think people who do that are doing that because they don't want to make the effort to succeed. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're stupid, by the way. I've known some really smart people that just threw their intelligence out the window because it would have been an effort. It wasn't their interest. They are more interested in playing video games or hanging out and partying, smoking weed, getting drunk. I mean, yes, I have seen this in all. I have seen all four examples. That's not acting white. That's acting stupid. By the way, that's not acting black. That's acting stupid, or Native American or Asian, and all of it. This is not a matter. Being intelligent and learning the operating systems to do things, that is not a matter of white or black. That is a matter of drive and ambition. And if you are ambitionless and you're just content to float through life, that is on you. When later you realize that you should have done something, and I've known some people who also regretted that. Doesn't mean it's too late, by the way. You can pick up and start over at age 75. I've seen that. But just because you have ambition doesn't mean you're acting white. It means you're acting smart. Now, I hear a lot of, well, Asians are so smart. Blacks are so smart. Native Americans, we were misunderstood. We were actually very smart. Because I had heard, Native Americans are stupid. You know why? One of my books in college enlightened me on that. It talked about how we would have the cradle boards, and we were considered stupid because we would walk later than other cultures because we were being bundled in the cradle board, so we would walk less. It was for our safety. It was just the way things were done. And so then, you've got people who don't do cradle boards anymore, and we're learning to walk just like everyone else. And it's like, no. We're not stupid. We just, the culture was a different way of handling things. But being educated and being smart and wanting to learn, about, oh, I don't know, Egyptian hieroglyphs, especially if you want to be an Egyptologist, that's not acting white or trying to steal some culture or whatever. That's being intelligent and having ambition and just enjoying learning and exercising your big brain, you know. So people who do that, that one teacher pointed out that it's really just people tearing people down. I mean, I saw a video once of this one kid who had made the dean's list at school, and so the other kids beat him up for it. Why did they beat him up for it? Because he was acting white? No, they were beating him up for it because they were jealous and full of hatred. And I have seen a lot of encouragement to be hateful. I was a substitute teacher in for a while, and I did some subbing in the inner city, close to here. And I won't tell you one, but I will tell you that the hatred in this city is famous. It's so infamous that we had some people living in the military housing next to us at Fort Polk, and it was, oh, they're from this city because they were purposefully parking their car to block us from getting out of our place, and we had to like call the MP, the higher ups a couple of times on them, on these guys, and we knew where they were from, and it turned out they were, and because of their sheer attitude, they're that infamous. My girlfriend, when she was in not basic but AIT, she went all the way across to the other side of the country, and people were putting people down from this city. That's how infamous the hatred is. So yeah, don't fall for it is all I can say. I mean, fuck them, so now lately it's work stability is acting white. Getting up early is acting white. I've heard that one. Math goes with the language and intelligence thing, so we've already covered it. So work stability. No, that's also not acting white. That's acting like you might want to pay your bills. That maybe you prefer to pay your bills as opposed to getting a handout and being a bum. People have been getting up early to handle things for centuries, the world over, no matter the climate, no matter the skin. And, maybe you don't need to get up on that Sunday. Maybe but if you've got to get up early to go hunting, you're going to get up and go early to go hunting. If you got to and hunting can be hunting for buffalo, and it can be hunting for that paycheck. Getting up early is, I don't know why someone would decide that's acting white. This need to blame everything good on white supremacy is just freaking insane. It's good because you made it good. It's good because it's doing good for you. And, bad history aside, I mean, yeah, we live in a world now that was shaped by a lot of sad events. But why should you let that make your life miserable? Move along. Oh my God, move along. So, I cannot find any way that I would be acting white. Not even with the holidays. It's like, oh, well, Christmas, Christmas, which my parents threw away because heaven forbid they wouldn't want to act white. There's this thing that people don't understand about, called cultural exchange. They call it cultural appropriation. And it's like, no, it's actually cultural exchange. Surprise. Cultures have exchanged things back and forth since the beginning of time. If a culture does not do something like that, if a culture does not change and exchange and breathe and grow, it will literally die. Okay, cultures are like plants. They have to be able to grow. That being said, the best cultural exchange thing that you might go, oh, it's acting white, I can think of is Christmas and Japan. In Japan, Christmas has become a holiday of love. It's when you confess. It's when you give each other love gifts. It's like a Valentine's season. Yes, there are Christians in Japan who celebrate the birth of Christ at this time. But generally, the mainstream Japanese thing is Christmas is this romantic season. And they'll decorate up, they do all these things. They have completely adopted a lot of the Western Christian symbolism things. But over here with my family in particular, Christmas got thrown out because, oh no, don't want to act white. Except that in the Mohegan, and which goes down to my people, because I mean, yes, we consider ourselves our own tribe, but legally for a very long time we were actually considered a branch of the Mohegans. There's this thing around Christmas time called Beaver Moon. So I was born in Beaver Moon, and it was a time of, ready for this, guys? Gift giving. We would give each other food. We would, enjoy each other's company. It was the cold months. Hunting would have been thin. Fishing would have definitely been too cold to be thin. And you definitely weren't growing anything. And so that matches Christmas pretty darn close, doesn't it, guys? So, no, not even with the holidays. And if you've got a holiday that you adopted out of another thing, because I don't know, let's say that you're, pan-religious, which there are a lot of people like that, and so they adopt different things from different things. You're still making it your own. And same thing with chaos magic. Chaos magic really pulls from stuff. Still making it your own. Still making it your own. You're not acting white. You're acting like you. Now trying to be white, that's something else entirely. And I can't even, go there, this need to go backwards and divide everything by color, black only spaces, actually it's diversity, which isn't really diverse. I can tell you that from experience, because I have been excluded from diversity at least 2-3 times based on my skin color. That's not diverse. That's just racism. So let me tell you now about going back to history, because it goes to my next section. Land allotments. Because of the Indian problem. One thing they did to try to divide us up and stop us from being a united people is they did land allotments. And what they did is they divided the reservation lands up into sections, and this goes to this family and this goes to that family, kind of like buying a land or property, except it was allotted to the family. Now the reason was to, quote unquote, once again take care of the Indian problem, because if you divided everyone up so they had to be their own place, they were no longer living together as a tribe. And it was a way to divide. And then they did, well, you have to prove you're part of the tribe by blood quota to be part of the tribe. And that divided and diluted the tribes even more. Once upon a time, you could trade tribes. People think, oh, well, I'm part Blackfoots, therefore it's like, no. Once upon a time, you would just trade tribes, and this was happening all up until after I was born. You could still do it, but now, because of the blood quantums and all these things, and in some cases fear that you're going to have to share the casino money, or the treaty money or whatever, you can't do that anymore, because you have to understand that, yes, I'm Native American, and yes, I have white people in my ancestry. White people that it's like, your dad didn't care about this. My dad cared enough to tell me about it with pride that we were, of noble blood. Okay, so shut up, you horrible people. I've got English kings in my ancestry. My tree goes all the way back to the founders of Norway and Sweden, yes, I have these other European tribes in my ancestry. That does not make me necessarily part white. People ask, well, how much white, you look Native American. How much are you? That's the rudest question. Okay, what? I think my pinky might be Shoshone. Cut you up like you're a freaking, apple pie. being native has always been a way of life, which is why somebody from the Mohegan tribe was able to come to my tribe, the Brotherton tribe, and become a Brotherton because it's a way of life. I can't, this is a very, very thin analogy, but it's like I'm Catholic, but I want to become Protestant, so you become Protestant. In a way, the churches are almost like religious tribes. It's like that. So, but the land allotments and the blood quotas and looking at everything from a race point of view and dividing everything and going, oh well, this and that to other, all it has really done is some tribes are in serious trouble now and looking at becoming extinct because their children were like, fuck that, I'm going to go marry a white person. Why? Because this white person loves me, you know. And I don't know if it's still this way, but it was this way when I was going to college. The Hopi in particular were having some trouble because they have this serious blood quantum thing where, like, if you are not, you know, enough, or you are half Navajo, which happened a lot, or whatever, you weren't allowed to be taught this ritual and that ritual, and so then they were facing being in trouble because of these racial divides that they had put. That's actually a brand of racism all of its own, and it's a brand of racism that keeps you divided, thins you out, and eventually destroys you. Please understand, it eventually destroys you. You will die out. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be this generation, but things happen. You will die out. When you strike at the other races and say things, you know, like that, you will die out. So whenever somebody's saying, well, you might as well be white, it's like, no, this is a very hateful thing to say. And all you're doing is undermining your people's cause by saying things like this. You know, yeah. I don't get it. But that's my reaction, you know. This kind of hatred is rooted in holding each other back and keeping things divided. And for my people, that kind of way comes actually down from the government, which wanted to keep us divided. We were not allowed to congregate even. We were not allowed. Even with a powwow, you still have to get permission. It's why? Because there are laws controlling, you know, get-togethers? No, because there were prophecies that were taken very seriously about how we were going to rise up and take our land back. And, I mean, you know, look into the Ghost Dancer sometime. That one is sad. This comes down from more than us. And everyone who falls for this hatred are actually going into the agenda to keep us divided and keep us fighting each other. In the meantime, do you know what has been missed while everyone talked about all these little petty things for 7 years at least? Do you know what else you know what's been missed? Well, the Congress, the Supreme Court, ruled that the IRS has permission to look at our bank accounts without permission yesterday. I find that a bit more important than whether or not somebody's trying to act white. I just saw a headline that I haven't looked into, talking about how apparently the IRS now has permission to grab money out of our 401ks without our consent. I've got to look into that one. The movement for everyone to have to be chipped so we can be tracked probably has made an advancements. I think that's more important than worrying about if someone, is acting white. The fact that cars are going to have cutoff switches coming out really soon, it still stands. That's more important. They're rolling out digital currency on us, despite the fact that the Oracle of Wall Street put out in his yearly paper that cash was king. By the way, cash is king, everybody. Use cash. Use it more now than ever. These matters are completely being smokescreened by this divisive issue of racism that everyone is perpetuating while claiming to want to end racism. And I feel that those who can't wise up and get out of it, you're either shills or you need to do something about your hatred because it's holding you back to the point that you're trying to hold someone else back. To finalize on that, I'm watching this K drama on, it's a Korean Odyssey. And there it's got ghosts in it, and they have in it that was defeated just last episode an evil mouth. And I found that really interesting because I have heard about such spirits in my own upbringing a lot. These evil spirits that will come to whisper to you to get you to do hateful and say hateful things. And it strikes me that we have a lot of evil mouths out there. We have a lot of evil mouths who tell each other to look at how well someone can tan, something they could not help. It's not like we have, families going in and going, I want a child that is white whenever they're, they just, genetics still are pretty free running things. Let's hope it stays that way because it's important. We have a lot of evil mouths. We have a lot of evil entities that have issues, and their issues, they're taking it out on us, the rest of us who want to succeed. If you want to see your people succeed, if you're Black, Asian, Native American, if you want to succeed, my people figured it out. Something I had heard all the time. You go, you get an education, you carry that education back to your people, and you do things to serve your people. That's not acting white. That's being a good, strong warrior. And in my case, I am using my education to help with the Mohegan language, which I really need to get back on that. I don't get to work on it as much as I could. But my schedule, is so different now. That's what you do. Don't be an evil mouth, because all you're doing is undermining your future and your children's future and your children's children's future. Instead, be willing to get together and stand intelligently to do things in the right way. Because otherwise, all you're doing is making a mess. And you're not even being a good person. You're just not. Good people buoy each other up and help each other to succeed. And I, in particular, delight in seeing someone do well, especially if I've been there. It hurts me whenever they give the credit of when I've helped someone else. That really hurts, by the way. That really, really hurts. Because it's like, but I was there for you, and I am nothing to you. That hurts. Which, well, that's another topic. But I take a lot of delight in seeing people do well. And because of that, I try to keep success and goodness around me. That is not that's not being white. That's being smart. Because when I started throwing away the evil mouths and getting the evil mouths away from me, my life started to do better, and I started to see success. These evil mouths that want to tell me that I'm white, I might as well be white, or whatever, from my father down to people I meet on the street. Chances are really high they're not succeeding in their own lives. And if they do have success, it's success built on hatred, which is not success that a stable person is going to want anything to do with. This statement, "you act white," this hatred, period, that's going around, all it's doing is keeping us from seeing the really big, important issues. The issues that are actually affecting us, that are actually taking our freedoms away. And it's not healthy. And I think a lot of people need to, they need to wake up and see the truth, I guess. I've rambled long enough.